So thank you for joining us today at Go Diving. We are joined today by Simon Rogerson, who's a big supporter of the Shark Trust, has an amazing magazine, which I'm sure we'll discuss during this. But Simon, thank you for joining us. Could you please tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into kind of the marine life and doing what you do?
I started diving in the early 90s, and the first time I saw a shark, it was like a transformative thing in my life. I don't think I'd ever seen anything so beautiful, so wonderfully designed by nature, so attuned to its environment, and it was like a big revelatory moment in my life. And I thought I wouldn't be able to spend my life seeing such amazing things and bearing witness to nature at such close quarters, but I'm a journalist, and I kind of changed my career from crime reporting to working for diving magazines, just so that I could just continue this. I never get tired of looking at sharks, and every time I see them, it's just a kind of a vision of nature as it should be.
That is incredible. You've gone straight in with this, how transformative these experiences are. Do you have an experience that kind of stands out for you with a shark or a ray?
Something that invokes the nature of the sea or the ocean, as well as the nature of sharks, is to see the full might of the Indo-Pacific. And then if you go to the Eastern Pacific and you dive in seamounts like Galapagos, Northern Galapagos or Cocos Island, or even the Colombian island of Malpelo, these are the places where scalloped hammerheads ride on different layers of water, different currents, in a kind of a slightly sleepy mode. And there's lots of theories about why they do it, why they amass in schools that can number thousands. But for my money, this is the most spectacular thing in nature, to see sometimes hundreds of large animals in this eerie kind of ritual, which is, as old as time. It's an ancient event. Hammerhead sharks stopped evolving a long time ago, not because they're primitive, but because they're perfect. They're amazingly well attuned to their environment. Their sensory apparatus all spread out. They're wonderful miracles of nature. And every time I see them, I have to pinch myself just to sort of pay tribute to how lucky I am just to be there. You don't find them in easy places. You find them in remote, difficult places. My theory is because they don't do too well with pollution and human activity and so on. So if you're going to see them, you have to be stealthy, you have to move with the water, and you have to tread lightly. It's challenging, but the reward is incomparable.
That sounds amazing. And for people who are new to getting into diving and seeing sharks, do you think being able to dive with sharks, photograph sharks like you have, do you think that connects you with kind of the marine environment with sharks and conservation for them?
I think when people see sharks underwater for the first time, there's no soundtrack. There's nothing telling you that this is an innately dangerous or bad experience. There's an animal that's highly specialized, moving through its environment. You're blessed to be there. And if you've been one of the few humans on Earth to see a shark in its own environment, you've got a responsibility to tell the truth, to say that, in fact, this is an inspirational moment. No, you weren't threatened. You just managed to catch a few precious minutes of just an amazing animal doing its thing, whatever that may be. Swimming past you, maybe a breeding event, maybe a feeding event even. The actual risk to people is not an issue. For me, the things in the sea that are risky, the water, can be difficult waves, can be a big current, can be cold. There's all sorts of factors. But as long as you show a modicum of respect and a degree of awareness of the animal, you're safe as houses. And that's a message which I think a lot of photographers have a responsibility to put through in their imaging. It's very easy to get a photograph of a great white shark with its mouth open, because when people see them, it's usually when bait's been used and the shark's been pulled in. But actually, when the shark's mouth is closed, it goes into a natural, gentle smile. And that's a more realistic image of it. If somebody took a photograph of me eating a burger, it would be heinous. But a picture of me sitting and chatting about sharks, it's not so bad.
No, I love that as well, that comparison. And do you think, so we've kind of spoken about, we want to protect these amazing animals, like they're incredible, they've been around for such a long time, yet in today's world they've got a lot of threats, a lot of human threats, with the largest being fisheries. So overfishing is the biggest threat to sharks at the moment. Do you think divers with kind of this view of the world, this underwater world, are a community that should be supporting sharks in conservation?
So we are all the eyes under the sea. Anybody who has the privilege to snorkel or dive and see a marine habitat either as it should be or maybe as it shouldn't be, they can all contribute to our overall awareness by talking about what they do. If you're an internet communicator, if you're somebody who posts on social media a lot, talk about it. Tell people, I saw this area of reef and it's now been algified. It can't support little animals, let alone sharks. If you see an environment which is still in its natural state, celebrate it. Tell people that there are still these places and it's worth fighting for. But as you say, the nature of conservation has changed and it has to be knowledge-based. It can't be an instinctive battle against people who eat shark fin soup all the time. It's one side of the argument. But responsible fishing, sustainable fishing, that's the single biggest issue we face. There's issues with global warming, acidification as well. There's a lot of different factors play into how we should be concerned about the sea and the overall welfare for the animals at the top of the food chain. But really our responsibility as people making consumer choices and educating, communicating with each other is to know that we haven't perfected our fishing methods. There's an awful lot of destructive fishing methods being employed today, too many to go into. I'm not going to highlight any one particular, but there is an awful lot of large-scale, unregulated fishing, huge amounts of bycatch, huge amounts of waste, damage to the environment, and there's a lot we can do, there's a lot we can ask our politicians to do without cutting into the lives and the welfare of the fishing community. There's a lot to be said for reaching out and helping each other, and this is the direction the Shark Trust has been going in.
Yeah, they have. So we've got a campaign called the Big Shark Pledge, which is about creating this community of shark conservationists, people who love sharks, basically, to be that voice for them. And with your experience with your magazine, did you want to talk about how using the magazine and people being able to tell their stories and about sharks is a great way to use that voice?
And it's really encouraged. Something that I find really positive is when I first started working diving magazines 25 years ago, there was a general reluctance to really accept conservation stories and shark stories, not because people hated sharks in the diving community. Divers have always liked sharks, but because it wasn't seen as a crucial theme. Increasingly, as the years go by, and this kind of community of divers, photographers, academics, campaigners have solidified into a real voice that can affect real change. And we get a lot of encouragement for our readers to run environmental stories. We now have a regular 4-page environmental section dedicated in the magazine with a column by Paul Cox, the MD of the Shark Trust. And he updates us on your activities all the time. It's an absolute honor to have Paul in the magazine. And he brings a lot of these themes together. He writes a lot about the challenge of campaigning in the modern world, the activities of fishing crews. He's a really kind of community-minded guy and a great sort of ambassador for sharks and conservationists in general.
That is absolutely fantastic. And then, one more question just to ask you. With all of these experiences you've had with sharks and rays and diving around the world, do you have a single shark or ray species that would be your favorite, and why would you choose that? Well,
it's a tie, and I've already talked about hammerheads because it's a fragile experience. If you mess it up, if you catch the wrong current, you're not going to see them. You're not the most. It's not like going to the cinema. You're not the most important part of the equation. But if you're lucky, you'll see one of nature's great hidden events that so few people get to see. But along similar lines, pressure shark cleaning stations, of which there are maybe 5 or 6 known ones in the world. There's one in Malapascua in the central Philippines it was called the shoal. It was the monad shoal, but the threshers are no longer going there to get cleaned. There's another cleaning station in a nearby shoal, which is a little bit shallower. And what happens is the half-moon wrasse wake up in the early morning. The fresher sharks come up from feeding in abyssal water, and they go to get cleaned because they pick up parasitic copepods. And because, like a lot of sharks, they're very sensitive, they get these copepods all over their palate, all over their lower jaw. and they're very sensitive and it really irritates them. So they really want to be cleaned. So they come to the surface, or near the surface, and there's a precious hour, the golden hour, when these little wrats come off the reef and they can't stop. They're not the sort of shark that can lead a benthic lifestyle, but they slow down and the great tail swirls behind them, and you just feel like you're being visited by something from another sphere of existence. It's a perfectly normal reef. You'd expect to see them in some crazy deep water environment, but it's a normal reef, and then you just see this long-tailed animal with a kind of fox-like astonished look on its face appear out of nowhere. And it judders a bit, it's cleaned, and it's disappeared, and the last thing you see is that swirling tail disappearing into the visibility. It's magic.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, and I think I can say for everyone who's watching or listening, that's an experience anyone would be lucky to experience, and we're all quite jealous of you right now. And just before we finish, could you, for people who want to know about your work, the magazine, and ways to find out about all the stuff you're doing, do you have contact details of where they can find you and stuff like that?
I'm an old Luddite, so you'll find me on Facebook, where I post quite a lot. But I work for the British Sub-Aqua Club's magazine, Scuba, which I've been editing for about 14 years now. It's a real privilege. I love sharing divers' stories. That's my primary job. It's an old-school magazine, and if you want to get it, you've got to join BZAC, which is well worth it. Dive with friends.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us again, Simon.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm Hetty. Thanks for listening to the Shark Trust podcast. Did you know that you can support our work protecting sharks and rays? Here's just some of the ways you can help today. Join our community of passionate shark supporters and gain access to exclusive events and content by becoming a Shark Trust member. You can adopt these incredible animals, directly supporting our conservation efforts and research projects. Make a donation today. Every donation makes a huge difference. Your contribution will go towards funding our vital work all across the world. And finally, if you want to get more hands-on, you can take part in our citizen science projects. Your data and observations are invaluable to understanding the world of sharks. Together, we can make a difference. Visit our website to find out more and take action today.